I'm planning on running 5k this morning. So that's part of my running every day for 100 days. So I just spend a few minutes doing some simple leg stretches. My muscles are always tight, and stretching allows a little bit more flexibility and reduces my risk of injury. With leg swings, I hope to warm up my hips and my hamstrings. All these hopefully prevent muscle tiredness and tension, and hopefully muscles are not as sore after my exercise, especially if you're running every day for 100 days.
Time 5 minutes. Distance 0.54 kilometers.
I'm going to try and walk down some very wet stairs. What could? Well, let's go see. Okay, 5 steps to go. Just take your time. Now if anyone ever asks you, Frank, were you hiding under a tunnel while it was raining? The answer's always yes. I was hiding in a tunnel and I wanted to get a little bit drier. So it's a good few minutes later on. Welcome to Saturday. Now this is day 12. Day 12 of 100 days of running every day. So today I want to talk about computer games. Are you thinking, why computer games, Frank? Trust me, there's a start, a middle and an end. I'm kind of going somewhere, just bear with me. So I was much younger. I used to love playing arcade games. I must have been maybe only about 11 or 12. And the most popular arcade games at the time were Space Invaders and Pac-Man. Such fantastic games. But there was one game that kind of sneaked below the radar. And that arcade game was Donkey Kong. Now for me, I didn't really play much Donkey Kong. But there was one character in it who didn't really have a name. They credit him as Jumpman. Now many years later, that character called Jumpman would become hugely popular. Now around about 1984, when Frankie was saying relax, I had my first computer game console, and that was a Sinclair Spectrum ZX. It was almost like a keyboard with a tape recorder attached to it. And once the Sinclair Spectrum ZX got a plus, the tape recorder became part of the system. It wasn't console-based games. It was cassette tapes. Cassette tapes you would try and load, and most times it just wouldn't load. So I never really thought all these years later on it would actually really take off. But it wasn't until, in my opinion, the early 90s, Nintendo arrived. Nintendo released Nintendo Entertainment System. And that had a worldwide smash with a game called Super Mario Brothers. Remember the character from Donkey Kong who was called Jumpman? He was renamed Mario and now had his own game. So that was a worldwide smash. So quickly, a few years later, Nintendo released a follow-up, which was the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, or SNES. This was a much faster, much more powerful console. But for me, it had a new game and a new world to explore. That was Super Mario World. This opened up Mario's universe, introducing some new characters. One of the characters being my beloved Yoshi. When you found Yoshi and you jumped in Yoshi, you made this fantastic noise. They also introduced a racing game with a Super Nintendo entertainment system. And that was Mario Kart. Mario Kart would become beloved with us playing 1-player, 2-player games. They also had 3 different levels. You could play it as 50cc, most times you'd win. 100cc, a little bit faster, sometimes you'd win. Or 150cc, and you'd be last all the time. Nintendo became hugely popular, and its rival for me was not Sega. I never really understood the Sonic, although I love Sonic the movies. To me, its rival was the Sony PlayStation. PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2, in my opinion, was a huge leap forward. Also was a kind of CD based rather than kind of games console. With the PlayStation 2, also was a PlayStation 2 monthly magazine, and that was around about £5.99. Although that would give you reviews of latest games, it also had with it a free CD each month, and that most times had maybe 10 demos of future games. So you could try them out, play a demo, maybe try something different and go, no, that's not for me. But for me, I always miss Mario. So for many years, I was always thinking to myself, how can you get a SNES again? So Nintendo, about 6 years ago, released the Super Nintendo mini version. So this was the classic games. It was 20 games, but it was pre-built into the console. So for me, I was in heaven. To hear the noise, Super Mario World, and you realised you get 1 minute to go to complete a level, made you feel like you had to go faster and faster. And let me always think about the times that I would sit up very late at night, try to collect as many lives as I possibly could, just to get to a save point. When I got to a save point, I could finally relax. I could finally turn it off. And then I start worrying again. How do I get by the next level? In my entire life, I think I've only completed Super Mario World twice. Once on its original Super Nintendo entertainment system, and once on the mini new version. So in a roundabout way, Mario's always been there. He was there in Donkey Kong in the arcades in the very early 1980s as Jumpman. And now in September, I'm going to visit Mario and Yoshi. I'm going to see him in Nintendo World and Nintendo Land in Universal Florida and Universal Hollywood. So as Mario has always said, let's a go-go. Day 12 is done. See you tomorrow. And that's what makes this challenge so exciting for me. You can control what you eat. You can control how much you drink. You can control when you go out. But what you can't control is the Scottish weather. So running every day, 100 days. Day 12 is done.